Hey there, fellow writers. Here's today's question. How can Chekhov's gun help your writing? Well, first of all, what is Chekhov's gun? If you're not familiar with that principle, I'll tell you about it in just a minute. Maybe a better way to ask a question then would be, is every element in your writing necessary? Like every element in your story, is it necessary? Is it there for a purpose? And does it have to be there for a purpose? That's today's question. I'll get into that in a minute. It's Sam with another Friday video for you. Friday before Christmas. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everyone out there. I hope you're all spending time with family and just enjoying yourselves and things like that. I don't blame you if you're not doing a lot of writing right now because it's a hectic season. I haven't been either. I'm trying. I'm still submitting to agents and publishers and such. Excuse me, but I haven't written anything like new or done much editing work in the last few weeks. We've been traveling and all that stuff, but hey, we all have high hopes for the new year, so I hope your new year hopes for what you're writing come through in a couple weeks. Once we hit the new year, probably I'll do a video about New Year's goals and share mine for the new year as well as maybe talk to some of you. But anyway, back to Chekhov's gun. First of all, what is it? I'm actually going to tie together a few threads. If you've been watching videos from my last few weeks about I'm going to reference some things I've referenced in the past few. There's a connection in my head. So there you go. Last week I talked about a book called Reading Like a Writer by Francine Prose, and she has a whole chapter dedicated to Chekhov and his short story and the lessons she learned from him. I'm a bad English major. I said I hadn't actually read much Chekhov. I think I read a little bit in college. So maybe I should look into some of his stories. The way she described them makes them interesting. But Chekhov has a famous principle. He wrote short stories as well as plays. So he dabbled in both prose and drama. He has a principle known as Chekhov's gun. If you could, I just looked this up on Wikipedia just to confirm that was a thing that was known and just to get a quick basic definition. And the way I've often heard it summarized is if there's a gun on the stage, like someone's holding a gun in Act One, then by Act Five it should go off. Basically, it's like a promise or something. Like you're introducing this concept to the reader and saying, hey, there's this thing. Then there needs to be some kind of payoff or some kind of purpose for it eventually. Or here's just really quickly the Wikipedia definition. Chekhov's gun is a narrative principle that states that every element in a story must be necessary and irrelevant elements should be removed. So basically, if there's a gun on the stage, it's not just because, hey, I'm the writer, I decided to add a gun because it's fun. There needs to be a reason for it. Now, that's the principle. I will go ahead and say not everyone agrees with it. Actually, I'm just looking at Wikipedia here. It says some authors disagree, such as Ernest Hemingway, have other perspectives. So we'll talk about whether it's really necessary or not. Actually, one thing I learned from that book, and you can go back and watch last week's video or listen to last week's podcast episode if you want to. The one about Reading Like a Writer by Francine Prose. If I had to give give a lesson from that book or like a moral of the story or anything, it was there are no rules, or rather, the rules are just guidelines because she goes through a lot of the basic principles of fiction writing and says, yeah, this is what we've been taught in creative writing classes, and maybe it works in some cases, but almost everyone she could find an exception to somewhere in great literature, and it worked. So I'm sure it's true for Chekhov's gun too. If it is a rule, treat it more as a guideline, not an absolute principle. I mean, don't feel necessarily bound to it. But and actually, in the chapter on Chekhov, I wish I brought my book home because I could quote it right now, but I think I left it out of the office. There was someone summarized the principles. I think it was Vladimir Nabokov summarized principles they gotten from Chekhov. So this wasn't written by Chekhov himself, and he almost seemed to contradict it, like because Chekhov had said like he was writing like his job was just to show life as it is, not to write fiction for a purpose, and so he said that, and it almost seemed to contradict that principle of Chekhov's gun. Obviously in real life, you can have a gun that just sits there and never goes off, but the idea wasn't a story; it needs to go off. And him saying he just kind of captures realistic stories as they are doesn't seems to go against that. I'm not a learned enough student of Chekhov to know which side he really stood on, or if there was some of both. Maybe it was one for prose fiction and one for drama, because drama does follow a different set of rules. And in drama, you're kind of more expecting, things. In that short span, you have an audience to please. You want things to go right for the audience, and you want them to kind of their hopes and suspicions to be fulfilled. So anyway, um, that's one principle taken from Chekhov. Don't necessarily consider it absolute. I mean, there's some debate on whether even Chekhov fully believed it in everything he wrote, apparently. But it's a good general principle, I think. And I'll tell you why I was thinking of it today. I actually asked my wife a few weeks ago because she's also a writer, and sometimes I do one of these videos pretty much every week, and sometimes I'm starting to run out of ideas, run out of topics to talk about in writing. And I asked her, what's something that I asked her, like, what's a topic you want to hear talked about that isn't talked about as much? And she gave me, I mean, she didn't use the actual phrase Chekhov's gun, but she gave me a similar principle. Like in her own writing, she has said, like, well, I want to make sure there's a reason for this, and I think she went through some of her old drafts maybe, and it was like, I just added this in because I thought it was cool, whatever, but I wanted to make sure there was a reason for it. She writes fantasy, and I've talked about it in a video a few weeks ago. I'm a little more of a sci-fi guy for reasons I can't fully articulate, but I've dabbled in fantasy, and I like fantasy still. So, and fantasy is one of those worlds where there's, I mean, I don't want to say that there's no order to the magic system, because there usually there should be in good fantasy, but in less good fantasy, it's possible to just make up any magic system you want and have it not be consistent, and be like, oh hey, this thing happened because magic, and I thought it was cool, and maybe fantasy, maybe less good fantasy can let itself more to just throwing in random elements there that aren't supposed to be there, or that don't really have a purpose. So I'm actually reading the Wheel of Time books now. Also did a review on the most recent one I read a few weeks ago. It was only book 4, and I mean, there are 14 books in the series, so admittedly, there's parts of the series I haven't gotten to yet. Obviously, there's much of the series that I haven't gotten to yet, and I don't know how it ends. But there's all these elements introduced, and I'm in the first few books, and I'm like, I'm sure it'll pay off eventually, but I don't know what the main crux is for all of them, and I'm kind of in the midst of where it's kind of hard to tell where this is going, and maybe that's a long time to wait for the reader to have a payoff. For example, one of the main characters, Perrin, has this kind of mystical ability where he has a connection to wolves. He doesn't exactly turn into a wolf, but he like channels his inner wolf and like adopts wolf-like tendencies, and kind of he can like take on the mindset of a wolf and become a ferocious hunter in that moment. He doesn't physically transform into a wolf like a werewolf, but he like adopts some characteristics of wolves. And there's another girl named Min, who's kind of a major character now, or becoming more major, and she has these visions of the future, like, where she can like see what's going to happen to people, and she can't control it. She can just see these things, and I'm like, okay, there's these interesting magical elements in this world. I mean, I think they're both kind of separate from the main magic system, like in that world, supposedly men aren't able to use magic, but Perrin has this ability that's other from their main magic, called the One Power. And I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be some. I mean, this is all well and cool. I mean, werewolves or whatever are, I like that as much as the next guy, but what's the point? And admittedly, I haven't gotten to the end. I don't know if there's gonna be some like fascinating moment where Perrin uncovers the true nature of his powers or something like that. If it was me writing, and I deal in superheroes, I'm like, I would want to make sure that maybe there's some crisis or some moment in the last battle where Perrin has to change into a wolf in order to save someone, or like in order to do something. Like, I don't want to make sure it was there for the plot. I haven't read far enough for Robert Jordan to confirm if he does that or not, but I'm like, for me, I'm like, I want to make sure there's a reason for it, and not just something I thought was cool. So there you go. Again, it's a principle. It's not an absolute necessarily. There have been other famous writers and successful writers who disagree with it. And part of this, I think, also goes into if you're a plotter or a pantser. My wife will admit she's definitely a pantser. She's stopped writing stories because she couldn't figure out how to get them out of situations that she wrote them into. And so she might start doing something cool and then be like, I'm not sure where it's going, and I got stuck. And for me, I'm like, well, I personally write with the end in mind. Doesn't mean I have everything planned out. Just means I have a general idea of where I want it to go. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, this element will come up later. So that works for me. I recommend it. I'm not saying it's the only way, but I recommend it as a general principle. So, general principle, Chekhov's gun. Make sure every element in your story is necessary and has a reason to be there. Everything you introduce, like a power or a weapon or, I don't know, a character who's good at this or whatever, make sure it has a purpose and it's going to be realized later in the story and it will come to, hopefully somewhere in the climax of the end. Make sure it comes to a satisfying conclusion for the reader and that their expectations can pay off. Again, I'm sure there have been exceptions where that didn't happen and it's still great literature. You could probably think of a few exceptions too. It's a general principle. It doesn't work for everyone maybe because we all have different styles of writing. So if it works for you, use it. If not, then just ignore everything I said for the last 10 minutes. But either way, thank you for watching. Keep writing. Have a great weekend and a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you all. Thanks everyone. Bye.